Hi folks, you're with Tassless Today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about what's clearly a concerning, depending on your point of view, I guess clearly a concerning development. That is that the number of applicants for skill, this is upper end of the skilled scale, for skilled jobs in Australia is running at about the same as the numbers you would get in India. Now, India has a population of, they're pushing 1.5 billion with a B population in India. Now, sure, most of those are illiterate, poor peasants, but the population of Australia, I think, is pushing 27 million with an M. So you can see the huge difference in the population sizes. Now, you look at the per capita income in India, it's less than $2,000 per person. So it's a dirt poor basket case country, but there is a small or smallish in Indian terms, rich elite. Now, the rich elite in India are probably I don't know, somewhere around 70 to 80 million, and then there's another cluster of 50 odd million that are kind of doing okay. But again, it's a small elite. But even their elite is still 6, 7, 8 times bigger than the entire population of Australia. But what I wanted to focus on here, I was talking to it was an online meeting a few days ago with some people, a client of ours, and the HR person was there. They may have been the diversity director, but anyway, from HR, and they were at this round table, and it was online. But they mentioned casually that they had some quite senior technical type role going, and it didn't pay a lot of money. I think it only paid like double the average wage or something like that. So it's not like a get rich job or something. And they pointed out that they got, within the first few hours, they had over 150 job applications, and by the end of the week, they had close to 500. Now, talking to some people in India for a fairly decent programming job over there, but in a similar technological field, they get about 500 applications per position there. Now, for the low end jobs in India, you can get between 3,000 and 4,000 applications per job, and that's the sort of number of people that are out there looking for a very limited number of jobs. And many of these jobs, they pay absolutely piss poor money, but it gives you an opportunity to bribe people or demand bribes and engage in corrupt behaviour, which is how most people make their income in India. It's an incredibly corrupt place, and they bring their corrupt practices, of course, to the West when they come, and they're changing us. They're turning the West into a corrupt basket case rather than us converting them to higher prudential standards and higher standards of probity. So you've got to ask the question: how is it that in a country of 27 million people, you're getting close to 500 applications, and for approximately the same job in India, you're getting the same number of applications? Now, something's clearly very wrong. How can you get that many applications for? Now, this is a change that's occurred over the last couple of years, partly, I think, because of mass migration and affirmative action. people that wouldn't have had a snowball's chance of getting these jobs, and now thinking, well, I might as well have a try. I mean, wow, my IQ minus 5 million relative just got a job as executive director of such and such, so why don't I try? So there's a lot of people wishful thinking and or as they say, aiming high and that sort of thing. People that can't speak a word of English trying it on, and so on and so. So you're going to get that, but even so, the numbers are staggering. And again, it's not like it pays vast sums. It's only double the average wage, so it's not as if there's some fantastic job on great money, and you can get a position advertised for, say, director of diversity in Australia. You can get 1,000 applications for that, because every schoolgirl doing gender studies looks at that and thinks, I mean, I'm in with shock viewing. They all know some gender studies girl that they studied with or know of, or had a lesbian relationship with, who got some $400,000 a year, $500,000 a year diversity director job at some fucking government, whatever. But so I just sort of, when I looked at that, or when I heard that, I was surprised. I thought she'd misspoken. I thought it was like there'd been 500 applications for a number of jobs. You know, they received those in the week across several jobs or something. But no, it was this one job. And again, referencing the comments I've had from people in India, where that's about the number of applications they get for those better qualified jobs. Again, unlike the entry level jobs, we can get 3,000 easily, 3,000 applications. So what's going on here? Why I can understand getting 500. I would have thought you'd have got more there, but again, it's a skilled job, and the vast majority of the population of India are illiterate, hand-to-mouth rural peasants. So they're not all living middle-class existence in the cities and wearing shirts and catching the train to work every. It's not that sort of place. Whereas Australia is. There's a few other things that sort of you look at around the Western world. For example, if you look at the working age population of Britain, then there's the thick end of 10 million people who a theoretical workforce of 40 million. There's 10 million plus who aren't working, but who are of working age. Now, whether they're students or whether they're people claiming disability or mental health issues, whatever, there's an astonishing number of people that aren't working, very few of whom are declared officially unemployed. They're on some form of disability allowance or whatever, but they don't appear, so they can claim that the unemployment rate's only 3%, where it is in reality unemployment's 30% or getting close to it. So, and the cost of maintaining that level of social services is all through borrowing. So they simply kick the can down the road and use borrowing to pay for all these people who are not doing anything, at the same time importing millions of illiterate peasants from the third world. Maybe someone one day can explain the sense and the worth of pursuing those policies simultaneously. But anyway, it's what the globalists clearly want to do and are doing and are forcing upon us. So you would think they must have some sort of objective in mind. But coming back to this number of people, well, one thing that sort of intrigued me in Australia, it's the opposite to the problem in India, that when the low-level, entry-level, lowest of the lowest paid jobs are advertised with poor pay and very uncertain conditions, you may or may not get any work on any given day. You're required to call in. They'll let you, no, we don't need you today. They may even only give you 15 minutes, half an hour notice that they want you. And if you haven't turned up, they've already called the next person. And then when you do turn up a bit late, no, we got Billy Bob to do it. Sorry, Jimmy Jack, you can fuck off home. And so this idea of you have to be on standby to start immediately, and if you're not, you can, all this sort of terrible conditions and working conditions and circumstances. And for this, illiterate third world peasants who are here under scam labour hire, things are perfect for that, and they're increasingly taking a bigger share of that. But even in those places, even if on those jobs, if they're not near some sort of a major transport hub, then it's still difficult to get people. Now, there are guys who own factories and around, say, an industrial area that's, 3/4 an hour drive away from where I live. And I know some of the people there, and they said, well, they just can't get white workers, local workers. Then they say white as in they've been educated locally and speak English as a first language, that sort of thing, which means they can be given written instructions and the like. And they have trouble getting those people because the pay is so piss poor and the conditions are so piss poor. so that as long as they insist on paying shit money and with shit conditions, then they're going to get that gap, if you like, is going to be filled by illiterate peasants from the third world operating under these labour hire scams, where the minibus turns up and your 20 workers file out and do all the hard yards. So this is something that in Australia there's a shortage of workers to work at the bottom end, unlike India, where you've got this massive surplus of people, 3,000-4,000 applications for every shit job that's for sweeping floors 3 days a week. But when it comes to skilled labour, then it's quite different. Suddenly it changes. Australia has a massive surplus of skilled labour. For an economy of this size and a population of this size, when you're getting 500 applications for a job, then you have a massive surplus of skilled labour, which is what's going on in Australia. So there's another organisation that we're doing business with, and they had sort of a middle manager type role. And we had to wait a few days. They'd hired somebody, but they hadn't started, and they didn't want us to do the next part of the gig until that person was in the chair. I don't know why they hired a moron and an idiot in the end, but they hired this guy, and they had what they claimed was again 300 to 400 applications for a job that isn't that seen, doesn't pay that well. And I'm surprised that they had. Now, I didn't get to see the quality of those applications. They could have all been from, some third world shithole somewhere. Who knows? But they were congratulating themselves. The HR people were congratulating themselves. How it must have been a brilliant advert if 400 people applied. Now, I had a look at the advert out of academic interest, and I thought it was very sloppy. It was just too vague. And because of that vagueness, there are people that would have self-eliminated had it been the wording and the requirements been a bit tighter and a bit clearer. But so there's a massive surplus anyway of skilled labour in Australia. So we've got the reverse, where the price paid for skilled labour is actually declining. Jobs that paid $150,000 a year 30 years ago are still paying $150,000 a year today. So 30 years of inflation, 30 years of real estate, prices increasing by a gazillion %, and those jobs are still paying that same money today as they were then, which goes to indicate just how much the value of skilled employment has declined relative to cost of living. Whereas, people like diversity officers and diversity directors, and I've mentioned jobs in other videos, whether it's to ensure equality of black lesbians in the theatre. Those jobs now pay more than a senior engineer gets paid. So if you're a globalist enabler, if you're a race gender hustler, an LGBTQ hustler, propagandist, and so on, these are the jobs now that pay well, and you're effectively on the globalist ideological payroll, and those jobs are now paying the best out of all the. Also, relative to the private sector, the government now pays much better. It was considered that when I was a sort of younger guy, that a government job will pay about 25% less than the private sector because they produce no wealth. But you got the benefit of a job for life plus a good retirement pension. But that's reversed now. The equivalent job in the public service and the private sector, you can get paid 30-40% more, better in the government job than you now can in the private sector, what otherwise would be roughly the same job. So that just shows you how wealth creation is now no longer pays, but propaganda delivery does. But I want to come back again to this idea that for technical skills, a number of jobs is shrinking. The pay that there is, the pay level for those jobs relative to cost of living is plummeting, and the number of applicants is multiplying out of all sight. When you're in a place like Australia, where, and now granted, this is in downtown Sydney, but where if you're getting 500 applications for really a, say, slightly above mid-level skill job, then there's a real problem somewhere. Mass migration and dumbing down of the education, so none of that is helping. You've been with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for listening.